I want to just take a few minutes here to talk about two Canon EOS R or RF mount lenses that I had the chance to use on a trip to Northern California, to San Francisco actually, Muir Woods, Alcatraz and whatnot. And that's the Canon EOS RF 24-70 f2.8 image stabilized and the 15-35. For this first part of the video, we're going to look at images and videos straight from that 24-70 lens. Now, I will say when I started this trip, I really expected to use the 15-35 much more often. And what surprised me is that I used the 24-70 70 to 80% of the time. It was almost always on my EOS R camera because of the versatility. It's not only just a fantastic lens as far as the autofocus and the image stabilization, but it is just an absolute great focal range for that lens. Most of these shots, by the way, are shot at 1080. Most are shot at either 24 or 60 frames per second. And I tried not to go into slow motion too often in this clip because I just wanted you to see what the image stabilization looked like. The vast majority of time that I shot with this lens, I shot with the image stabilization in the lens on and the lowest setting of digital image stabilization in the camera. And I found that that was really very, very good. Not quite on par with my S1H or a GH5, but really pretty close. It's impressive what Canon is able to do with this image stabilization in this lens. And you can see here just the wide focal range that's available. I really liked the rendering of this lens at f2.8. When comparing this lens to the two other options in a very similar focal range that are native to the Canon EOS R mount lens, I would say that it doesn't quite have the magic of the 28-70 when it comes to photography. That being said, it's a much more versatile lens. That 24-70 is really difficult to use for video. It's super heavy and big. It's a magical lens and basically shoots like it's a prime lens from the way it renders things, but it's really not capable of being used for video because of that lack of image stabilization. On the other hand, the 24-105 is a great travel lens. It's more compact. The image stabilization is on par with this f2.8 brethren. However, if you're a wedding photographer or if you do some portraiture, you like to do some videos and portraits or videos in wedding along with photography, I think you'll find that this 24-70 is a better lens for you, although it is considerably more expensive than that 24-105. If you do travel photography and videography, I think that 24-105 would be a great lens for you, and I don't know that this is necessarily much of an upgrade. You can just kind of get an idea here. This was shot in 4K. These are the Blue Angels coming across the skyline. I had a chance to shoot this from Alcatraz during Fleet Week and during the aerial show, and you can see it just really has a great autofocus, great rendering here. This is some slow motion from the beach that we went to just outside of Muir Woods. This, I just grabbed the camera and flipped it on to get these birds, so it's a little rough. That is slowed down from 60 to 24p. Now the Canon RF 15-35 f2.8 image stabilized lens is a fabulous lens. It is really a great lens. Just because I didn't use it the majority of the time when I was out there, really kind of had more to do with the focal length of this lens. You can see here amazing low light capabilities of this lens. And really a tremendous wide field of view. Here you can see 60 frames per second slowed down to 24 timeline. Really nice image stabilization on this lens. Better image stabilization courtesy of that wider focal length that just seems to take a lot of the shake out of the image. Great fast autofocus. This firmware 1.4 for the EOS R camera did a fabulous job of locking on and tracking faces and tap to focus and whatnot. You can see here I'm just simply hand holding this lens and walking behind my son here as he navigates the trail. I could slow this down and it would look really, really nice. Great lens flare and sun stars with this lens as well. And here you can kind of see that diverse focal range. Now, one of the things I liked about this lens was the ability to not only shoot at 1080p and use the full frame, but also to be able to shoot the 4K cropped, because that essentially really made this lens more of like a 24 to 50, which is really versatile. I don't love the 4K coming out of the EOS R as much because of the rolling shutter, but it is nice to have that option and increases the versatility of this lens. You can see here just really, really nice in the way that it's able to maintain that image stabilization. Here you can see, and I'm not taking any special care with how I hold and handle this lens. A little bit of warpage on the wide end of things, and you do occasionally, when you're at 15 millimeters, see some vignetting, particularly if you have a variable ND filter on. But for the most part, this lens does a fabulous job and gives you great videography and photography as well. Here's the Golden Gate Bridge. Here we are at Muir Woods, and you can see I'm just walking behind the boys here, zooming all the way in and then all the way out here for the Muir Woods sign. Here we can see the variability. This is at 35 millimeters, and then I'm able to zoom out all the way to the 15 millimeters to really get the idea of how big and tall these trees are. Here we're kind of tracking my wife and sons as we walk through, and you can see just how steady that image stabilization is. Comparing this lens to the 16 to 35 EF lens, I certainly think the image stabilization is a game changer at f2.8, and this lens just is beautiful. It renders great. I think both of these lenses, albeit expensive, are fantastic additions, and really what we need from Canon is a camera capable of getting the most out of these lenses. I want to thank you for watching this video, and look forward to future videos coming out.